Yeah, so I don't know if we want to talk about, just kind of go over at a high level, with the NAS, a NAS solution can be soup to nuts, right? I mean, it can be very inexpensive, surprisingly inexpensive on the consumer grade end of things. And then you can go up from there, but very attainable depending on what you need. I think you can tailor it to what your environment is. And it's kind of a like the bullet point is a self-contained solution. So using the past week as an example, and my relative, they literally went to Best Buy, and not to plug any one place, but a retailer that starts with BB. I mean, they went to that place and they got themselves, arguably a business class or something, could be used for business class work, more than some of our customers when we first interact with them, more than some of those guys have, and set it up and are off to the races with using that environment. And again, so this person is not the most technical. Let's say this person in my family is not the most astute technically, and they were able to get it out of the box, get it set up, attach it to everything, and use it. So there is that ease of administration piece that, with a SAN, you just don't have that. I mean, a SAN there's some specialized knowledge required, even beyond just being a technical IT person, right? I mean, there's the running a SAN is almost a discipline in and of itself.
Right. We have guys that specialize in that at FE Pro. So
I have a quick question, Keith. In your particular example that you just gave, what were they experiencing at home that they felt like they needed to go to the BB store and bring that home and set that up? I mean, what was the driver behind doing that task?
Well, the biggest thing is they had, I can't remember if the number was 17,000 pictures. They had a bunch of family photographs. Like they only take digital photographs. And they had it on a hard drive of a computer, but they're afraid that they were going to lose that. And, grandkids, kids, just it's a different world for photographs than it used to be. You used to print them off, put them in an album, and then you had them. The risk was then you had fire, you might lose them. And they didn't feel like they understood products like Dropbox and OneDrive enough to use it. So they went and they got this Buffalo NAS, which has cloud storage on it, but it's all part of the package. So they don't need to really know how to do much of it other than click the button that says cloud storage, and then click the other button that's add more. Put in your credit card number and you're off to the races. But well, that was the thing for them, is they were afraid they'd lose these photographs that, are a big part of their life. I think the other thing, and kind of going to one of these other bullet points, is where it says 24/7 and remote data availability. Part of that was they have it set up so they could access those pictures from anywhere. If they just have it on the hard drive of their machine, yeah, they probably could have set it up, but this made it super easy.
I see how this goes. They come over to your house, Keith. Here,
right.
Pull it up on my phone. I got 47,000 pictures for you to look at during dinner.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So not only can we not stream Netflix, but whatever. So that was another part about. I think the other thing in this kind of is an interesting point, though, where it says wide array of systems and sizes. It really is soup to nuts on those NAS devices. When you think about a Synology alone, I mean, was it you can get a 2-disc unit for a couple $100, right? Yeah. Or you can get the what's one of them we have is a 16-bay disc station. And think about that. You have a 16-bay disk station and you put 10 terabyte drives in it. All of a sudden you're talking some heavy duty storage. I mean, slow as a turtle, But if you need just a bunch of stuff, that's something that can work.
Right,
So
well, and you can set up multiple RAID arrays in those too, I mean,
Yep.
it leaves you open with all sorts of options that just didn't exist a few years ago.
which is actually kind of a good segue into the next one. When you start thinking about RAID and the ability to be fault or failure tolerant, if you have, let's see, I have one of these. If you just go out to Best Buy, right, and you just want to do backups, I have one right here. And you just go out and you get a Toshiba, you just get a little disk drive, right? 2 terabyte disk drive. Well, if this thing dies, then it's dead, right? But
Right.
if you have, like Synology with multiple disks set up in a RAID configuration, now you're tolerant to a disk failure, right? You can absorb that and swap out a disk and be good to go. Now, that's different than that other thing. So to those of us who are in IT, obviously we're like, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But if someone like my aunt and uncle who aren't familiar to that or aren't familiar with that, that's kind of an interesting concept for them. And I think the other thing, and I'll default back to Synology because they kind of blew everyone away with the stuff they had going on, was automatic backups to other devices. Synology does a great job with their replication. I happen to know that somebody on this call is using their replication capabilities. We won't name names, but they may or may not make pizzas. That shall remain anonymous, but having 2 Synologies and being able to back up between them, or not back up, I guess, replicate between them, is a very powerful thing. And then even the concept of, and they all have it now. The Buffalo folks have it. I don't know what they call theirs, but Synology has that C2 product, which is backing up to the cloud. So if you go out and you purchase a Synology, now all of a sudden you can back it up to the cloud. So if your underwear drawer catches on fire and your tapes get destroyed, you're out of luck. But if you have a Synology there, you're replicating to a cloud thing and you can still get your stuff. So, and they offer that as either, they have a capacity that you get with the purchase. If you need more storage, you can buy it. But again, that's a whole different level than if you just have this static disk, and that's your playground. You are limiting yourself. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the SAN piece, if I can get it to go to that. Benefits of a SAN. I think that, as we talked about, extremely fast data, and where does that matter? That matters in places where you're doing big queries. You have big databases with a lot of transactional stuff going on. It matters in a call center where you're popping, they call them screen pops. Somebody's phone, the call comes in, you recognize the number, you do a database dip, pull out the information, and this thing is happening in real time. Or you're doing predictive dialing, and there's a constant chattiness happening between a gateway and the data. So a SAN is very good for that type of an environment. And like if you were to have a NAS implemented and you were doing that type of work, you're going to flood that local network, right? You're going to fill up your capacity. Kind of like if you were to go out in the front yard and, you're a little kid, you go out and you drink out of the garden hose, right? Well, imagine if you went out and you turned on a fire hose. You'd have water coming out of your nose for 3 days.
Ooh,
But
right.
that's what those transactional things are like to a local network. It really will limit your capabilities. So the SAN will take that chattiness and put it on its own private network, if you will, off of the production space. The scalability of a SAN, think about Legos. As you need more capacity, you add more Lego pieces with same to similar speed. You don't lose the speed just because you add another node onto that SAN. Now there's usually limits. I think it kind of talks about the limits of interconnect, but as long as you're within those limits, you can usually expand quite a bit without losing any speed capabilities. OS level native access to files.
Right. That's talking about the differences between accessing something as a shared drive or a drive share on the network versus having it appear as a local drive in your operating system, which works. Some programs won't work with a share as well or at all. So having it like native access to those files is a big deal, and allows things to work faster and more reliably.
Yep. And then when we think about the only solution for demanding applications, like a call center application, for example, has a lot of concurrent access. I mean, when I think about when I was at Fingerhut, we had 10,000 to 12,000 agents, call center people, accessing data at any given time. And just having that ability to deliver that volume of data concurrently, it required something like a SAN. A NAS would have been brought to its knees to handle that. And when you think about a SAN handling that information for a call center, but also handling that information for inbound call center putting orders in, outbound call center making calls out, and a distribution center fulfilling orders, all that transactional information coming from one storage solution, if you will. And that's when you start thinking about big ones like EMC and those. So really quite amazing when you start to think about it.